Hello, my name is Kevin A. McGrail. I have the pleasure of moderating a panel that we did at InboxExpo, but this one's going to be recorded. The panel is going to discuss the use of AI in email, including the definition and basis of AI, some best practices, some advantages, disadvantages, and pitfalls, and much more. I am very pleased to go ahead and introduce Tali Hasanov. She's the CEO of WSI Digital Path. They're a WMA award-winning digital agency. They bring over 17 years of experience in digital marketing and lead a team of professionals dedicated to helping businesses achieve growth and visibility in their respective markets. WSI delivers powerful but cost-effective solutions for its clients, and her tagline, which I love, is "Embrace digital, but stay human." I'm also joined by Dipanjan Day. He is the co-founder and CEO of Combi. It's a new generative AI tool. It converts designs to fully functional, campaign-ready emails in just a few clicks. And recently, they were voted one of the top 10 products for 2023 on Product Hunt. So welcome. Thank you both for joining. Did you guys want to go ahead and say a few words, give an introduction, or add anything, or you want me to jump right into the questions?
No, thanks a lot for that, Kevin. We can start with the questions right away.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the first thing really from me is, before we start talking about AI, is to talk a little bit about your definition of AI. So, Tali, how do you define AI?
So it's a good question, Cam, about definition. And I think the best description of AI would be a couple of quotes from some thought leaders that we all know. So, for example, Bill Gates says that AI is the most revolutionary technology in decades. And it would be as fundamental as the invention of the microchip or the internet. So this just perspective of he's saying, I completely agree. It's something out of scope, something huge coming, and probably Dipanjan will put it a little bit in more technical perspective, but this is more kind of global impact, I would say.
No, definitely. And Dipanjan, you have some comments around it, I think, that also relate to Microsoft. So your thoughts?
Well, yeah, at least PowerPoint, right? So
yeah.
You might remember that when we were speaking the last time, we were saying that the common joke used to be, let's say 3 years back, that AI is just machine learning on PowerPoint, right? And that has probably changed a little bit today, and it has become large language models or LLM on PowerPoint, right? But I could not agree more with Tali that this is a fundamentally new wave of things, given how powerful the large language models have been lately. But I cannot help feel that AI always would be a sort of a broader definition than just large language models, right? Although today, when most people say AI, they just are talking about large language models. But I imagine that in general, AI is the capability of a machine to perform tasks that you would ordinarily assume that only humans can do, right? And what the technology is that would be called AI, that might be a moving target, and that will keep on changing with time, right? Today, lots of LLMs are called AI. Similarly, a lot of non-LLM tools like deep learning tools, more data-driven stuff, those are called AI as well. And the tool that we work on, Combi, is an example for that, which is a non-LLM AI, right? But I think in general, even if I look forward, I would think the time-tested definition of AI would be just that, which is a machine's ability to do tasks that are ordinarily considered human.
Oh, it's a great quote. And it ties in nicely because, one of the things I talk a lot about with AI is how old AI is. So, AI at its core is probability and statistics, built largely. The grandfather of AI, from my perspective and many others, is Thomas Bayes. His seminal writing is the Doctrines on the Principle of Chance, published in 1763, I believe it's the right year. So, the concepts of what we use for AI have been around for hundreds of years, and many people have been using AI for decades and don't know it. And I use the black and white example of anti-spam all the time. It starts with some work by a guy named Dave Robinson. I like his definitions a lot. But you start with analytics. You can do that on a napkin, you can do it with Excel, you can do it with Google Sheets, doesn't matter. You just do analytics and you come up with a hypothesis from data. Once you've built that hypothesis, you build a model that can then produce predictions based on that hypothesis. And then finally, AI takes those models and the predictions they make and does automated actions from them. So if we talk about email, scientists look at bad email, good email, spam, etc. We come up with corporas of email. We come up with methods for then building neural network models that can decide this email that's new based on what we've researched, based on the hypothesis we've made. This is junk or this is good email. And then the AI can say, okay, I'll put it in the inbox or I will put it in the junk folder. But when we talk about the basis of most AI today, people are getting much more familiar with things like generative AI and large language models. And large language models are using statistics and probability in large libraries that have been built up, looking at huge amounts of data. Doesn't always have to be huge, but it's pretty big. And from that, they can make really next word predictions. So that's how most of your LLMs work today, is from that next word prediction based on what it's learned. So I think that kind of leads into back to you again, Dipanjan. So, how can marketers use AI, and what low-hanging fruits are there, that you can see from the interactions with your team, and talk more about the next word prediction stuff.
Yeah. So before I jump into the question, that was Kevin, that was a really incredible sort of combination of maths history and spam history in the same paragraph. I am not sure if I've heard a lot of that before.
Well,
so thanks a lot for that.
I made most of it up, so that's the bad part.
I was about to Google this, so please don't say that. I was just about to Google this up. But back to your question, right? So I think there are 3 areas where I think that most marketers can probably leverage today's AI with not a lot of investment or effort, right? And the first bit that comes up to my mind is image generation and editing. And lots of us have used DALL-E or Midjourney to generate images. But my personal favorite in this whole stack remains Adobe Firefly. But because marketers often, as much as they need new assets, they need to touch up their existing assets to fit into a particular color theme, one particular campaign, fill the background in a sort of natural way, that sort of thing, right? And for all those use cases, Adobe Firefly and the realistic image retouch, essentially, right? I think that's pretty incredible, and it's getting more powerful every day. Of course, you could use either Firefly's image generation models or DALL-E, Midjourney, etc., to prompt engineer good assets as well. But it requires a little bit of prompt engineering to find the right assets, right? And do that easily. The next bit is...
Please continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I guess the next bit is copywriting and inspiration, right? I think how good AI is for copywriting, that is probably up for debate. And just like image generation, you can do a good amount of prompt engineering to find the right sort of voice, and it would not be trivially easy to do that. Often, I'm sure we have all seen emails and texts that are sent to us that just read too rigid, too non-human-like, right? And for sure, probably that's coming out of ChatGPT or something equivalent. But at the very least, you would be able to use a tool like a Jasper, ChatGPT, or Copy AI to generate first drafts, right? Or generate sort of ideas that a human being then can edit, right? And of course, this is much more easier to edit text than edit images. So hopefully, this will be easier for most of us than the image models, right? And the last bit is predictive insight. And I think some teams might have the in-house ability to sort of do things from scratch and make large language models generate predictive insights for them. But that requires at least a little bit of sort of fine-tuning, right? Or at least a little bit of prompt engineering, pretty advanced prompt and data engineering, right? An alternative is to try to tap into whatever AI the ESPs or marketing platforms have already built in. For example, Klaviyo has a good bunch of predictive insights built into it today, right? I know a bunch of other ESPs have also released similar things or are working on similar things. So they might be able to do things like predict segments, right, automatically without you having to manually slice your email list, right? As an example. So whatever comes out of the box in your ESP, I think that's probably one of the first thing you'd want to check out. And then depending on the development bandwidth that you guys have available or analytics bandwidth you guys have available in-house, your mileage might vary on what other things you might be able to do. I remember Tali mentioning the last time that her team has been able to use AI in various shapes and forms to do some sort of predictive insights in-house, right? So that's great. But I'm not sure if all of us would be able to do that. But obviously, the ESP native AIs are going to be a lower hanging fruit.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, all of that, I can't say strongly enough how much I agree with it. Tons of my publications talk about that, but I will point out something that I want the audience to know, which is kind of what is prompt engineering. So Tali, do you want to take that question? You want me to answer it? But what is prompt engineering? I know that's a little bit off script, but we're mentioning a lot about prompts, and I don't think we've quite explained it enough.
Yeah, Cam, thanks. And I just wanted to add a couple of points to the previous question. Actually,
we're not gonna have fights like you and John last time. Okay,
right. I was hoping for that. Don't say that.
We will after. We won't record that, so there is no evidence, right? So, for example, speaking about ASPs, let's say Salesforce, right? It has Einstein GPT. HubSpot has Content Assistant and Chatbot. So it's a lot of platforms. They have to those days to implement AI in some capacity. Otherwise, they will be left behind, right? And nobody wants to be left behind. And when we speak about tools, actually, I'm not sure if you noticed, but ChatGPT has Canva implemented now, right? So, for example, for any banners or any imagery, right, that we spoke about, it's easier when you create a prompt. You can create already the banner. The quality is questionable, but it's the speed of development is so fast that it's just a matter of time when it will be developing to the highest quality, right? So it's just wanted to add that there. And another platform, Sora, right? So the video platform. This also it creates some crazy things. Actually, one of the Hollywood, they invested, I think, billions in this platform in Sora because it's the capability is just crazy. So back to your question, Cam. Sorry that I took a little bit of detour.
It's fine. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, it was only like 2 months ago that I finally learned that Google's image creation tool, which is image and then GEN, is actually pronounced Imagine, and I was just like, oh. So, how I missed. I mean, I also learned. I was reading words. I was like, why the hell is it pronounced hyperbole instead of hyperbole? Like, so anyway, that's But yes, back to my question. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what is prompt engineering?
Right. So, and this is a great question. So back in 2023, if you guys remember, there were talks, this will be the hottest kind of profession, prompt engineering. Some were saying, we will be paying like more than $300,000 for this kind of, roles. But then it's all changed. The prompt engineering, engineers no longer needed, actually, because it's basically simple English language plus ChatGPT and other AI models those days. They can fix themselves. Actually, ChatGPT can fix its own prompts, right? Other AI platforms and models can do the same, right? So many times the complaints or the information might be not correct, or if ChatGPT or any other model, they don't know the answer, they just can hallucinate something, and then it will bring completely wrong outcome. So the important part of actually prompts is to be very specific, to give as many details as possible, but not to ask too many tasks in one ask, because then the ChatGPT or other AI models, they get confused, and then the outcome might be might be questionable. So it's better to improve the prompts, but not to give a lot of details about certain tasks, but try to focus and ask only one thing at a prompt, not to get all over the place.
That makes total sense. All right, switching gears. So still on AI though. One of the things that you talk about is how AI gives you an unfair email advantage. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Right. So it's actually a good example that current ChatGPT IQ is about 155. And Albert Einstein IQ was about 160. So we already about the same. And it expected in the next year, it might reach, 1600. So assuming it's half right, even assuming it's only, 70% wrong, we still, to reach this kind of crazy IQ and capacity, it's never was possible to have the team of three university graduates or high professional thoughts trained on certain tasks and models at very short
Excuse me.
short, no problem, period of time. So the advantage we get is basically by adapting certain AI, tools, techniques, how much time and the human hours could be saved, and what we can, as the bottom line of the business, see as a revenue, right? Because usually the role of we're looking for, I don't know, whatever. So let's say marketer or someone else. So instead of hiring 3 people with doing repetitive tasks, it maybe could be only 2, while some of the tasks could be replaced with AI, right? Because we hire and we basically tailor the roles in the company, not by necessarily certain positions, but what those positions perform. So basically what kind of tasks. So if we can save time on some of the tasks and resources as a result. So for example, instead of hiring 3 people, we only hire 2. And the one person salary, we can use either to reinvest in the business, we can invest in other tools. So basically what we able to achieve now is to save time and money, increase revenue, and as a bottom line for business as well, whatever revenue gets as well.
No, I mean, I tell people all the time, your job is basically you leasing yourself to a company. So, we have to think about that. And that's a very interesting point. To Panjan, I know, we've been talking about email. What do you have thoughts around things that are not email and what AI advantages bring to bear?
I think you can use pretty much the same framework, right, to any marketing function, which is image generation, copy generation, and predictive insights. Those 3 are probably going to be the lowest hanging fruits that you can pick up. For example, if you think about banner ads, there are various tools available today that are specifically tailored to generate good banner ad copies, right? And to Tali's point, these tools might not be the best in the world to write the best possible copy better than a human would do, right? But often what you would be able to do is to generate a large number of variations using the AI itself that might make it easier for you to test and figure out what is the best sort of iteration, right? And if you layer a human on top of that, like if you keep a human in the loop and sort of have them review the outputs of the AI, often you'd be able to achieve significant of time and cost saving, right? And because you can do things faster, that also makes things more effective because you can test more and really figure out what works, right? So although time and cost is sort of the starting point in that sort of journey of getting benefits of these AI tools, often you would discover that you would be able to improve your conversion matrices, right? by virtue of being able to do things faster, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess all three of those do not just apply to email, but they apply to essentially any marketing channel that you can think of, right? Starting from even LinkedIn messages. I know a ton of people who use AI to generate drafts of their LinkedIn messages today, right? And I think you still need the human in the loop to be able to authentically do it and generate good content, right? But we have all been on those Monday mornings when you just stare at your keyboard and you are not able to come up with a good idea, right? Those are the moments where you can probably use this sort of drafting, copywriting, and design helps the most.
I don't like the way you were looking at me when you were talking about the staring at my keyboard for good ideas on a Monday.
Only on Monday, though.
But
I live the other. Yeah.
It's Monday now, and
Fair enough.
excellent. All right. Well, so we'll come back to that. I mean, for me, the human in the loop is a big deal with AI. I'll comment a little bit about that in the next questions because they touch on that a little bit. But let's hear from Tali a little bit. Tali, what are some examples of AI used every day? I mean, I talked about anti-spam filtering, but I know this is something that you talk about quite a bit, and then I'll ask you some more questions around some problems with those. But
yeah, sure, Kim. So I just want to add on Deepajan's point about ideas. So AI is great for ideation. It's just great, right? As a kind of starting point. So I did some tests actually. A few years ago, we did rebranding. We worked with one. We didn't do rebranding. We worked with a client who hired agency a few years ago for rebranding. And rebranding means, new brand, name, logo, whatever it involves, company name. So it cost them 40 grand back then, right? So it's kind of, sensible amount. And with ChatGPT and AI, so I just ran a test, right? So for example, to come up with idea for a company name in this industry, then you get, for example, 10 options, right, as a result. Then you like maybe 3 of them as a top one. Then you can ask to go deeper and say, okay, I like those 3. Can you give me more of those, right? And then the same time you can check if this company name, available. So all this process, what I'm trying to say, it could be done in like 5 minutes with cost of, close to nothing compared to 40 grand. Now, what we use sometimes AI with the clients, for example, we implemented, and I'm sure many people are aware of how important it is to reply to Google reviews, and it should be timely as well. Positive, negative, any reviews that posted on Google My Business, it's really important to reply from a business perspective. Now, it also affects SEO, search capacities, and in general, brand kind of reputation. So for one of the clients, we implemented this API. Basically, AI replies and it listens to the voice, it listens to everything. So basically, it trained to reply in a human voice to all the reviews. Positive, negative, there is different scenarios, but it saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of, obviously, the cost to the client, because the heaviest implementation is initial implementation, and then it's obviously need to be monitored, but it's not as heavy, because otherwise you have to hire someone full-time to sit there and monitor. If there is review, then you have to reply. So basically, it's almost a full-time person. You replace it with basically implementing AI one time, training it properly, and then it's kind of automatic process with just overview from a human side, right? Another client, we actually had another case of implementation of AI is they had about 10,000 older leads in the business that they wanted to do outreach, cold calling basically. And the goal would be to book appointment, sales appointment. Now, if you gonna do 10,000 cold calls, I don't even know how much it would cost you, how long it will take, and probably you will not get a person on the first time, so it will have to be a few attempts calling, so it would be really messy and complex.
So
Now,
at least a half an hour.
yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Weeks and weeks and weeks of work.
Weeks of work, and it's pretty expensive exercise, right? Results would be questionable. Now, again, we implemented AI, so AI was calling those leads and booking appointments. Again, we trained it, man, woman voice. It was trained, properly, and we were able to book 20 appointments, and it cost the client $600. So this is, you can't basically compete with this, right? So again, for some repetitive tasks that requires a lot of time, would be quite expensive, it makes a case to use AI. So again, we usually evaluate the business first to understand the way we can save time, save money, and then it makes sense to invest in the implementation, right?
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's jump over to Dipanjan for a second, and then we'll come back to you on the same question or a similar one. But so Dipanjan, what's the biggest pitfall that you've seen with AI? We just had some great examples of some success from Tali, but what's some problems and pitfalls that you've run into, or the biggest one?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that, Kevin. I think I see two sorts of pitfalls that often comes with businesses adopting AI, right? And they're pretty much at the opposite end of the spectrum. I think one end of the spectrum is that you would see people often would not know what to expect from AI, right? Or rather, what some limitations of the AIs that they're using might be. And some of that goes back to the human in the loop problem that we were discussing earlier, right? So for example, we were working with this customer who at some point used AI copy generation tool to generate lots of their email and ad copies, right? And one of the things that happens in the process is that the AI hallucinated and created some coupon codes that were not just present in the data that was given as a part of the prompt, right? And as a result, they ran a bunch of ads and some marketing campaigns with coupon codes that were just not valid, right? And it obviously caused a lot of process problems for the support team, for their merchandising team, so on and so forth, right? So I guess in general, as a thumb rule, to avoid this sort of pitfalls, at least as of today, it makes sense to have a human in the loop whenever you are having a generative AI doing a task that requires good amount of precision, right? For example, if you are using something like that for idea generation, it's not a precision exercise, right? So it's probably fine. But if you're using something like this to do a task that requires doing something deterministically, right? Given that LLMs are very, very far today, even if they're very powerful, they're very far from being deterministically correct. It often would make a lot of sense to have a human in the loop, right? And make sure that things are going well. This human would probably have to spend only a fraction of the time that they would otherwise have to spend. For example, the couple of use cases that Tali mentioned, they were able to significantly reduce time taken by humans, right? But it might still make sense to have somebody in the loop, right? So that's the first pitfall that we often see. And the second pitfall that we see almost at the other end is that people often would not know what all AIs can do today, right? And as a result of that, they will miss out on some significant sort of improvement in critical business processes because they just do not know that thing exists, right? And I get it. It's like we get probably a couple new tools in every area coming out every week. So it's really, really difficult to sort of keep tab on everything, right? But I guess just plugging yourself in places where people talk about tech and just keeping an open mind on towards what new things are coming up is going to be almost an invaluable and really critical part of most of our jobs, so that just we know that what are the latest things that are coming up and can really help us do our job better, right? Either if I'm a manager, what can help my team do better, more efficiently, etc. If I'm an individual contributor, what could I use to do my job better, right? I think for both of those, like being open to new ideas and new technology is probably the only way to avoid that pitfall of not doing enough or not exploring enough.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, that leads into like, one of the biggest pitfalls I've seen is I advise at some universities and they're working on policies around where AI is allowed to be used and not allowed to be used. And some of the original policies said you can't use AI. And then I had to tell them like, well, spell checkers and grammar checkers are already using AI and have been for a long time. They just weren't aware of it. But it's an interesting problem when you have this. I will warn any of the college students that are out there. One of my favorite pitfalls that I love that teachers are setting up for you is they're giving assignments and then they're putting white on white text that has prompts in it. So if the kids go cut and paste it into something like Chat GPT, it has the hidden text in the prompt, and that tells the teacher they used AI to respond to the answer. But enough about me. This panel is about you two. Tali, what are your thoughts? What's one of the biggest problems or pitfalls that you have seen with using AI so far?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting you mentioned universities. I have a friend, he is a professor at university. We just spoke last week, and I was doing AI webinar and he attended, and then we chatted. And he is like, oh, someone just submitted, a work, and I see that it was copied from ChatGPT because they didn't, when you copy it from ChatGPT to Word document, for example, it will give you this kind of blocks and table look or something like that. So this guy, he is nice, too nice. So he replied back to the student saying like, probably you didn't submit the final or something, but he would be able to fail him, of course. So I would say, aside from hallucination, I agree with Deepajan that a lot of people actually not aware what is AI, and it's a lot of kind of missing points from education and training. So we just done survey. We asked small, medium-sized businesses, about 500 businesses, about AI implementation and everything. So 62% actually of the people who replied, of responders, say that they not familiar with or any, like only slightly familiar with AI and its business application. So 62%, right? It's not even half of the people who familiar and what could be done with AI, right? Yeah. And 69% responded that they didn't have any form of AI training in 2023, 2024. So when we speak about businesses and from business perspective, I think in 2024, businesses should invest in educating the employees, educating themselves, what could be done, where they can, save resources, invest in AI for future. And because if competition doing this and some people left behind or businesses, it's just matter of time while they will be too far apart to close the gap, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that goes back to, I think, your business advantage. You were talking about AI, you were talking about the IQ levels. So, what do you think is your favorite business advantage from AI? Is it dealing with the IQ? Is it dealing with the cost savings? Is it dealing with the time savings? Is it dealing with, something else we haven't talked about?
Yeah, it's actually dealing with everything, right? So 72% of people that we surveyed, they believe that AI can help them meet business goals in 2024. So this is huge, right? So sometimes you sit and say, okay, how I drink, who I need to hire, I have no budget. So when we look at different business cases, case on case, AI, it's a huge thing, right? It's just huge. Imagine like years ago when you have to spend hours on even to come up on this idea or rebranding, spent, and it wasn't too far back, right? Spent 40 grand on almost, not too much get back, when 5 minutes it takes you with basically almost no cost, right? So I would say reducing the cost and ideation and come up with some, more and more creative ways I see coming from different AI tools, and the speed of development is huge. I don't know, did you watch this video when they announced ChatGPT 4o? It was, on YouTube, right? It's amazing. He speaks, he talks, and she's like, oh, let me take a look at your ceiling. Oh, looks like it's A, B, C, D, right? So this is just amazing. So you're able now have a conversation with AI tools, right?
And interact with more than just words, but, can use multimodal, which is a fancy way of saying things like videos and pictures. Yeah.
Exactly. I took a picture of my front yard, right? I was going to do landscaping. I uploaded, I'm saying, okay, give me some landscaping ideas on budget with this, with that. So the pictures that came out, it wasn't very good, but the list of ideas was very good, right? And then I'm saying, they're like, oh, maybe you should change your front door. And I'm like, replied, actually, it's a new door, so rewrite it to adjust this part. So it did. But the fact that it can read images, it can understand you ask where it is. So it's just, again, it's developing so fast that it's just a matter of time when it will be, perfecting to higher level.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, continuing on with the statistics. So Dipanjan, I know we've talked a lot about some of the things you've learned from interviewing all those companies you've worked with. So what's your favorite statistic from that?
Yeah, so I guess this is going to be very interesting given what Tali just described, right? And probably this speaks more of our sampling bias more than anything. But just for context, we primarily work with companies that are probably a little bit of early adopter side on tech curve, right? Marketing agencies, marketing teams in e-commerce and tech companies, so on and so forth, right? In our test set, we actually see that out of the companies that we have talked to in last 3 months, like almost 75 companies, almost all of them, like 95% plus of these companies have been using at least one AI tool today, right? And mostly we have been talking to marketing orgs, so we can almost reduce this down to 95% plus marketing orgs today. They have, at least the ones that we have talked to in those particular industries, they have been using at least one AI tool in production, right? I guess the more interesting part comes after this, right? So out of these, I think 90% plus folks, right? They told us they have been not just using these AI tools in production, but they are fairly happy with what they have been able to achieve as an output from those tools, right? So I guess even if I think about the early adopter segment, right, and this is very, very unusual for an early adopter segment to report such high level of essentially CSAT or NPS, whatever you want to call that, right? For a tool that has, or a technology stack that has been fairly sort of new, right? And what was even more interesting for us was that, I guess, most of these tools today, right? So out of the 60 odd teams that told us that they were happy with the AI tools they were using, only 3 were able to sort of figure out some sort of revenue correlation of the tools that they were using, or some sort of directly attributable revenue impact that they were saying, right?
Yeah, ROI is something all the CFOs are fighting with, right. But I think it's coming. I do think, like, in the last 3 months, we've seen a lot of evolution in the technology. We're starting to see real use cases, things like what Tali was saying, where instead of hiring 3 people, they're able to use 2. That's a pretty considerable cost savings, and I think it'll get better. But please go on. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I guess the whole point on ROI is still valid, right? So these are still businesses, and they're happy because they're saying, ROIs in some shape and form. But what was interesting is those ROIs were not coming from the revenue side of things. They were coming from time and cost saved side of things, right? Like, for example, obviously, we help companies make emails faster. That's an obvious example. But even if you think about the image generation use cases that I talked about, or copy ideas sort of use cases that I talked about, right? The core of them, at least today's reality, is that those are helping existing teams doing things faster, cheaper, more efficiently, right? Oftentimes, that might not be directly transcribable for revenue numbers for anybody apart from agencies who implement this, right? But at least on the cost and time side of things, the ROIs look to be very, very sort of compelling already. And as you were rightly saying, like even in the last few months, driven by CFOs, we have seen a lot of push on that to establish ROIs, right? So yeah, I guess those are the three things that have come up from in our interviews that we are really, really sort of fascinated to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's evolving very rapidly, no question. I think that's why so few people are familiar with the tools. It's just changing so much. I think maybe we're getting to a little bit of a bit where there's a calm in the storm and people can catch up a little bit. But so Tali, I know one of the statistics we've been talking about, some of the stuff out of Stanford, going back to ROI and CFOs, what do you see around the investment strategies around AI?
Right. So, and the investment in AI will be skyrocketing, right? So it's, and recently, interestingly enough, last month, I had a few discussions with businesses who are looking what we can do AI, how we can implement AI. Just last week, I spoke to someone. He's like, "Oh, we have customer service, but we don't want people to waste time on this. So we need to look at how we implementing AI tools to save on those," right? As example, right? So from our report that we created from the survey, what some numbers that we see, that 83% aim to use AI to increase revenue. So one part is reducing costs, another is increasing revenue, right? And 73% think AI will impact their business in the next 12 months. So people do aware of AI power, of what it potentially could do for their business and how important it is to have it and to implement certain things, right? And use of AI, obviously, for different, we discussed it earlier, for content creation and empower customer satisfaction. Google replies that I mentioned, productivity. So this is just, endless possibilities and numbers.
No, definitely. Well, all right. Switching gears, we're getting down to the last few questions. I'm going to ask Dipanjan first. So I like asking people what's their favorite current AI use case. For example, I've had a lot of fun with my significant other playing with pictures of our pets and making rock album covers out of them. So what's your favorite? And only one. You keep saying like 3 answers. You get one. Only pick what's your number one favorite AI use case, Dipanjan.
That's it's not easy to pick one, right? But let me try to that nonetheless. I guess my current favorite use case is using quite a few tools that are available today, right? You can essentially upload an image in a separate language, right, that you do not understand, right? And have not just real-time translation on top of that, but can get real-time responses based on what is written there, right?
Yeah.
So example of this is that this doesn't necessarily integrate with, let's say, WhatsApp, etc. today, but let's say you get a message on LinkedIn that is in another language, right? It has become incredibly easy today to respond to that just using an AI to take our first stab at that answer, right? So for example, we have quite a bit of usage of our current product in geographies that do not speak English, like Chinese, some Arabic languages, etc. Right? And today we are not just able to translate those incoming messages using Google Translate, but also get a first draft of responses using some sort of AI implementations that the customer support tools have done already, right? So that becomes a really practical and real world use case where we do not have to sort of go hunt for people who could help us respond in those languages, right? And at least we could come up with at least first draft reasonable responses using AI tools available already.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know Combi is looking for more customers always. I think we always are. Tali, I know you're speaking at MailCon July 28th in New York City, and you're going to be talking more about AI use cases in marketing and how to do it better. But let me ask you the same question I just asked Dipanjan. Not only one, what's your favorite use case of AI?
You can't limit me to only one, Cam. It's not fair.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, no, it is fair, but I mean,
I'm just
you
kidding.
can have
I'm
two.
just kidding.
You can have two. I
Okay,
like you
no,
better
no.
than Dipanjan. You can have two.
I'm hurt, Kevin.
Oh.
I'm going to cry. Where is my tissue box? Please don't do that.
Cam wants us to fight. Remember after
yeah.
webinar?
Yeah.
All right. So I would say I would go with data analyst. AI as a data analyst, it's a huge time saving from analysis to presentation. So it is as simple as uploading, Excel file. It can create graphs. It can analyze the data. As Dipanjan mentioned, even if campaigns in different languages, it would translate it automatically to English, and it's great. We use it for paid campaigns analysis, for organic, all the keywords ranking. It can also look at the competitors. We look at for email campaigns to see, for different ideas for, email campaigns where it's performing well or not. So obviously it would be a base for analysis report, but it's a huge time saving. I'm really bad with all the office tools, graphs, creating something visual. For me, I'm really not good with that. So it's either usually my assistant who does it, or nowadays AI, it's just a perfect solution because it saves so much time where I can, add my analytical and strategy thinking on top, but all the hard work is done on the AI side, and it's perfect with all the graphs and looks great. So totally.
I'm a little worried about that. I mean, Google's releasing a feature they've announced around how it can attend meetings for you and take summaries. And I just imagine what happens when everybody's AI shows up and none of the humans do. And you're going to get a little response and it's going to be, hello, Cam, we have decided that we don't need the humans anymore. I think it's really going to be this, Terminator 2 is going to be a lot more boring in real life.
But even today, we just had Mondays. We have actually at noon every Monday we have AI kind of update meeting, and when everyone joins to this Zoom meeting, you see AI assistant. AI. I think it's as many as people attend. As many AI assistants. So it's crazy.
No, definitely. All right. Last question. We'll wrap this up. So I asked this question before, so hopefully you've gone and done some statistics on it, maybe asked an AI engine what should be the right answer. But, we just had Apple's WWDC where they announced they're really getting into the AI game as well. So I will ask Dipanjan first, what AI company should I invest in? Whose stock should I buy?
I think
Besides
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Okay. In a gold rush, buy shovels, right? Or
Okay.
Maybe even Intel. They are not doing very well right now, but they are obviously Intel chip companies, right? The demand for chip companies are probably going to skyrocket very, very fast, and it already has quite a bit.
I did love NVIDIA's keynote this year at their GTC conference from Jensen, and he was hilarious. I urge you, anybody there, to go back and watch the keynote. They're talking about, I think, one of their big products, and it's liquid cooled, and how the water comes in, I don't remember, 65 degrees and then comes back out at 120 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. And he equated it to hot enough for a hot tub. And there's a question from the crowd. You don't hear the question, but I think you can figure it out, because he goes, yes, we'll look into making an attachment for that. So somebody had to ask how to hook it up to their hot tub. So I do like NVIDIA.
Yeah.
All right, Tali, last time you deferred, didn't want to answer this. Do you have an answer this time?
So I didn't do any research, but I would recommend to, as I mentioned, Sora. It's for video. It's just something crazy what they're doing. So I feel it will be big. Another one, actually, Perplexity pages.
Perplexity has been getting huge.
It's getting huge, and what the functionality they add, it's just crazy. I have been testing a few things. Pages just amazing. So I would just, on top of my head, again, I didn't do any research. It's just, don't go buy stocks and then it will not perform. Come back to me.
No, but you're right. I mean, video generation. Tyler Perry, produces these movies. Like Medea does something. Like Medea learns AI, and they cost him X dollars, and he goes and like prints a couple $100 million in profit. He actually stopped building. I think I read something like just under $500 million facility, because he's probably going to be using a lot more of the generation tools to create his videos. And I guess he's now going to print a couple $100 million, and it's costing like $1 to make them. I believe he's actually the most profitable director in Hollywood by a large margin because of that. So
wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So I think that's a good pick there, Tali. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Do either of you have any thoughts you want to leave us with? Otherwise, I will thank you for being here. For anybody listening to this, we will try and get the comments to answer any questions. So please feel free to leave questions in the comments. But Tali, any final thoughts?
I would say invest in education around AI to understand better. If someone already haven't done it, it's I would say the next step, learn more about it, invest in education, and then potentially implementation where it's suitable.
Excellent. Dipanjan?
Yeah, I agree with Tali, right? And of course, try Combine and see how wonderful this is and how it will solve world hunger, right?
Excellent. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.